Before we get into today's stories, if you're new, go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe to my channel, as it really helps me out. And if you are already subscribed, welcome back and thank you for subscribing. Okay, now with that out of the way, let's get into today's video. Scary stories. I am going to warn you, the story is a bit long and quite a doozy. Grab some popcorn and perk up those ears. This happened about 6 years ago. I'm 27 now. Having said that, I apologize if there are some details missing, or that I don't remember. I'd gotten out of a 3-year relationship that didn't end particularly well. I did not want to be one of those girls that made her way through a friend group, if you catch my drift. I wanted a change of scenery. I decided that I would try my luck on a dating site called Tinder. I know, terrible idea. I'm well aware of that now, but hindsight is always 20/20. In my mind, most of the dating sites are a cesspool of incels, catfish, and desperate people. To my surprise, I actually went on several decent sites. No red flags, creeper vibes, or weird feelings. Luckily, I made my mom aware of what I was doing, so whenever I'd go on a date, she'd know where I was and when I was going to be home. Mama didn't raise no idiot, right? Wrong. This is when I came across Dennis's profile. He seemed chill, kinda cute, and somewhat interesting, so I sent him a message. He was playful and had a sarcastic sense of humor, right up my alley. I decided to give him a shot. We met at a coffee shop and had some very engaging and interesting conversations. Dennis was 5'9", normal build, balding with a reddish hair, and glasses. He definitely gave off some nerd vibes. He started off by asking, "What are you looking for?" I gave my normal response, "I'm wanting someone who is sweet and caring, but also funny and intelligent." Something along those lines. Nothing groundbreaking. Cut me some slack. I was young. I realized later that giving this sort of response was the beginning of the end. Dennis and I went on a couple of more dates that were unmemorable. I started to fall head over heels for this guy, and fast. He was sweet, understanding, caring, empathetic. He liked to work out and took care of himself. He was everything I ever wanted in a guy. It was difficult to understand why he was single, since I was falling for him so quickly. We agreed that we would be exclusive. Everything was going smoothly until about 2 months into our relationship. That's when shit started to hit the fan. For the last month, I had been pushing him to let me hang out at his place and to meet his roommate, from the suggestion of my parents, because they are smart people. Every time I'd push the subject, he'd always make up some excuse on why we can't. My roommate is crazy. It's not a good time for me. He works opposite schedules than me, etc. It was always something. At some point, we had made plans to go out to a club one evening. I was all dressed and ready to go, waiting on him. He ended up not answering his phone for a couple of hours. I realized his phone must have died, since whenever I would send him messages, it would never say delivered. For those of you who are Apple users, I ended up deciding to go to his place to see if he would answer his door. I obtained his address at some point. I don't remember how. He lived about 15 minutes away from me in an apartment complex, and it was the middle of winter. February. It was fucking cold. I knocked on his door. No answer. While heading back to my car, look who decided to show up. None other than Dennis himself. And guess who he was with? Yes, you are correct. Another fucking woman. Which I later found was his long-term girlfriend, Jessica. I quickly made my way over to him. The look on his face was fucking priceless. His face deadpanned as soon as he saw me. He whispered something to the girl he was with, and she made her way inside. He came over to me and was speechless at first. I am very surprised to see you here. Really? We had plans, remember? I wanted to see if you were home. Yeah, I don't remember. My phone died, so I didn't receive any of your texts, and I lost track of time. We were at a friend's birthday party. Who's the girl? Oh, she's my roommate. I thought the guy was your roommate. He was. She's my other roommate, and a very good friend. Mind you, I'm a very skeptical person, and alarm bells were definitely going off in my mind. In accordance with my parents' numerous warnings. However, Dennis is the sort of person who is very good at talking himself out of situations. His reasoning behind the decisions he makes, why he made them, etc. He was an excellent liar, and being the naive, insecure person I was, I believed him. We ended up going to the club after I waited for him outside in my car for almost an hour. I didn't think about it too much, since I was getting what I wanted and nothing was said about his girl roommate. Over the next month, I kept pushing Dennis to meet his family and his guy roommate. He eventually caved and brought me to see his mother. It was an extremely odd experience. We talked about books, and some of Dennis's friends and I made snide remarks about how Dennis's guy roommate was fucking nuts. Dennis's words. And they gave me the strangest glances. This would make more sense to me in about a month or so. Eventually I started to realize that Dennis's stories weren't adding up, and I started to see holes in his stories. He would only see me on Tuesday and Thursday evenings because he worked a lot of overtime. He would never be flexible or change his mind or even allow me to attempt to change his mind. If he was late coming to see me, which started to happen pretty frequently, he would send me screenshots of his work and his work vehicle and line waiting to get washed, or he would send me screenshots of his bathroom saying he just wanted to freshen up. When I would ask for a picture of him in that moment of him in his bathroom mirror, he declined. He refused to send any pictures of himself, proving that he was where he claimed to be. He would also take unusually long bathroom breaks at my house after sex. I saying like 20 or more minutes long breaks. I know, another huge alarm bell. Everything came to a head about a month or so later. I told Dennis that I wanted us to go somewhere with no phone service so that we could truly spend time together without technology being a distraction. He agreed. We ended up making plans to spend 2 to 3 days in Canada. It was still early in our relationship, 4 months, and my mom wanted to make sure I was safe, so she took down Dennis's driver's license and made a copy of it, as well as his license plate. Thank you, Mom. The trip ended up relatively uneventful until the last evening in the hotel room. I'm not sure if it was on purpose or if he was actually asleep. Dennis ended up rolling over to my side, pulling me in close and saying, "I love you, Jessica." That made my blood run cold. I was so upset. Tears started to blur my vision. As I got up out of the bed, my parents were right all along. He was a liar and a cheat. Did I break it off? No, of course not. That would make sense. Why? I was naive and desperately in love with him. I also didn't want to admit it to myself that I had been played, or that I was the side chick. So I acted as if nothing was wrong, and I didn't even hear what he said that night. Of course, it didn't get rid of the aching feeling that I had for several weeks. I began to have bad anxiety and panic attacks on my way to school because of the bad feeling in the pit of my stomach. Dennis was constantly lying to me, and I mean constant. It was so bad that I ended up starting to feel angry. I let that feeling simmer for a couple of days until I decided to do something about it. When realizing that you were right all along and things weren't just a strange coincidence, it's very bittersweet. On a freezing March day, after an exhausting day at school, I wanted to get rid of the nagging feeling in the back of my head once and for all. I decided to head for Dennis's apartment complex to see if he was still lying to me about living in the apartments with this girl roommate. I got out of my car. I was shaking. I didn't know it was from anxiety or from anger that was starting to bubble below the surface. Was he lying about this girl roommate? You bet your sweet ass he was. I knocked on his door and hid myself from view of the peephole. He answered the door with his girl roommate behind him. I came from around the corner to look at him with an emotionless face and said, "Wow." I turned on my heels and walked away, only to find out, as I get back to my car, that I locked myself out of my car on a cold March day in the middle of winter. I was so distracted by my rage and sadness that I didn't realize I left both my keys and my phone in my car. I'm such an idiot. I was beside myself. I didn't know what to do. I locked my phone in my car along with my keys. How the fuck can you do that? I was so angry at myself for being a fucking moron. Not only that, I was in the parking lot of my cheating ex-boyfriend's apartment complex. I wish I was making this up. I really do. With nothing else to lose, literally, I walked back to Dennis's apartment and knocked on their door. Jessica answers, and I beg to use their phone to call AAA. Jessica surprisingly agrees and let me use her phone. This entire time, Dennis is agitated and kept walking around after I got off the phone with AAA. At one point, he even went outside with a coat hanger in an attempt to unlock my door, but to no avail. During that time, I took advantage of me being alone with Jessica to get some information out of her, like how long they had been together, where did they meet. I felt as though I was an auctioneer. I was shooting 20 questions at her rapid fire before Dennis came back in. By the end of it, I had more than enough information to prove that Dennis was not who he says he was. Everything started to make sense, and puzzle pieces began connecting. One of the biggest aha moments for me was when we both were talking about being in a relationship with him on Facebook. It turns out this sly motherfucker created 2 different Facebook accounts to ensure he was in a relationship with us both, only to block the other girl on that account, guaranteeing that neither of us would come across each other or his other Facebook account. I remember in the beginning I commented on how his Facebook profile was super limited and didn't have anything on it. He claimed It was only because he used Facebook to befriend coworkers on it and didn't use it much. Anyway, near the end of our conversation, I tried convincing Jessica that Dennis was a pathological liar and didn't care about her. It was at this point I realized that Jessica could have been aware of everything that Dennis was doing and was in on it, or she was just that naive. I tried texting her after I had left their apartment to try and talk some more sense into her, but it was useless. Dennis was with her alone, and he was master at skewing and spinning stories. Unfortunately for him, I had no more trick up my sleeve. Over the course of the next week, I spent my remaining few free hours I had, if I wasn't studying or working, gathering evidence against Dennis. I did research on Dennis and Jessica through Google, but mostly Facebook. This is the scary part about Facebook. If you don't have your privacy settings on lock, I found out who Jessica's parents were and decided to send them a message through Facebook with all the evidence I have collected over the past week and a half against Dennis, ensuring that they would believe me and my story. And when I say evidence, I mean photos of him and I, screenshots of conversations we had through text, pictures of him and I, etc. All of these pictures, texts, conversations having timestamps to show that he was seeing me at the same time he was seeing Jessica, hoping that they wouldn't write me off as some crazy ex-girlfriend or psycho bitch. Wishful thinking, am I right? I thought that there was something you should know. Your daughter is being lied to by her current boyfriend, Dennis. I met him on an online dating site, Tinder, and we spent the last 5 months together, but Dennis ended up lying to me about his life and everything about it. I doubt your daughter knows the extent to which she has been lied to. I feel it is only right for me to share this information I have collected with you, so that it might be brought to your daughter's attention, and so he can no longer get away with this type of behavior. Dennis is not who he says he is, or appears to be, and he has lied about many aspects of his life. Let me explain. As I stated previously, I met Dennis on Tinder, an online dating site. We dated for 5 months until I found out that he lied to me about his living conditions and the fact that he also has another girlfriend, your daughter. I have several pictures showing that Dennis and I were together as a couple. He also has several Facebook accounts. One he called a work Facebook, in which he was in a relationship with me, and another account in which he was in a relationship with your daughter. His work Facebook account no longer exists since he deleted it, but I was able to take pictures of it before it was deleted to prove what I am saying. Before continuing, I should mention that I have met your daughter twice. The first time was very brief, and Dennis told me that she was only a good friend. They had just gotten back from hanging out with some friends at Dave and Buster's house for his birthday party. This was back in early January. The second time meeting your daughter was for a longer period of time. This was at the beginning of March. I ended up going to Dennis's apartment to see if he was lying to me about still living at the apartment. He was. I ended up knocking on their door to find Dennis answer it and see your daughter standing behind him. Jessica mentioned to me about how she and Dennis have been dating for almost 4 years. I was also made aware of another Jessica he dated not too long before he started dating me. Jessica has also sent me text messages mentioning that there may be a possibility of him seeing another woman aside from your daughter and Jessica, a different Jessica. I will attach separate files with all of these photos I have collected. They will be in the order in which they are mentioned in this letter to you. I hope this information is of use to you, and I hope I was able to help in providing that Dennis is not who he says he is, and for you not to be fooled like I was. Thank you very much for your time. I did end up receiving a reply from her mother the following morning. The last time I heard from Dennis was a message he decided to leave in the grass in my backyard. It was a dead rabbit with its head cleanly cut from its body. It was clear that a human did it, since there were no sign of blood and the head was cleanly cut off. My family and I reported it to the police in case any escalation happened. Luckily, nothing did. Unfortunately, Dennis was smart enough not to take it any further, but it was clear he was very angry. He didn't want to leave any sort of trail through the internet or paper implying what he had did. Dennis, fuck you, fuck your empty apology. I feel sorry that Jessica had to deal with your dumb ass as long as she did. You were only sad that you got caught. I hope karma plants you right on your ass. To all the ladies he has messed with, I hope you're okay, and that he hasn't dashed too much of your confidence. He's a lowlife, and that's all he'll ever be. Thank you for listening. Take care, friends, and be careful. About 2 years ago, today, I recently moved to a new city in Canada. I was 21 at the time and single, as I just got out of a shitty relationship, so moving was a fresh start for me. In a new city, where nobody knew really, except my one guy friend, who we will call Mike. Mike didn't live directly in the city though, but we hung out a lot. Since I was single in a new city, I downloaded Tinder. Everyone my age has this dating app, or hookup app really. I don't usually do dating apps, but I was bored and was looking for a little fun. Remember the I don't do dating apps thing once you reach the end of this story. This is the exact reason I don't ever go on them anymore. So, I get on there and I match with a guy, who we will call Andrew. So I didn't message him first or anything, because I was doing a lot of swiping, and honestly went on with my day doing other things, as I just moved and needed to unpack. So a couple of hours later I check my phone, and I see Andrew has messaged me several times saying hi, complimenting me, and he even sent a funny pickup line. I always appreciate a good pickup line, as I have a good sense of humor about mostly everything, and don't take many things that seriously. Keep this in mind too. So I replied, and we got to chatting. He eventually asked for my number, so I gave it to him. It was fine from there, really. Nothing weird was said, so he asked me out to dinner and a few drinks. I agreed, and we met 3 days later. We met in a public place, obviously. I saw him outside the restaurant leaning on his car. It was a really nice car. He asked me to take a photo of it with the sun setting in the background. I said, okay, sure. Thought it was random, but whatever. We go inside and eat dinner and drink a little bit, and it was a really good date. So I invited him back to my apartment to keep the night going, I guess you could say. It wasn't super late, and we were really hitting it off. We get to my door, and I was a little bit tipsy as I drank 3 glasses of wine. I wasn't drunk, though, but I kept forgetting my code to my door. So I had it on my phone, and I got us in. The rest of the night wasn't weird at all. I woke up beside him the next morning, majorly hungover, and we obviously had fun the night before. He left, and all was good. I really didn't want to pursue anything further, so I texted him and said, last night was great, but I'm not looking for anything serious right now. And he freaked out on me, saying I was wrong for leading him on, and whatever else was said. Okay, fine, fair. You can have your opinions. that's by all means fine, so I ghosted him. Just didn't really feel like talking anymore after that. As he said degrading and subjective things, I left it at that and moved on with my life, as we all would. About a week goes by, and I'm out running errands to finish the last details of getting my apartment furnished. I come home, and he's sitting in my living room with flowers and a bottle of wine. I was drinking at dinner. I was immediately like, how did you get in here? As you need a key fob, and obviously a door code. The door code thing, after I thought about it, did not surprise me. He remembered it as I had it in and out in my open phone. But the key fob I was confused about, how he got the extra one I have. He admitted to taking it when I was asleep, when he stayed the night. I was really mad someone would do that after not knowing someone for like 16 hours in person, so I kicked him out, and I was a little shooken up about the situation. I blocked his number immediately after he kept apologizing. I just couldn't forgive him after doing that and invading my home, which is a safe space. Fast forward again to 2 weeks later, I was on a little getaway in Seattle with my friend Mike. I posted Instagram stories on the trip, and I forgot until after he followed me. We matched on Tinder. This is a common thing guys my age do on Tinder. So he knew I was gone for a weekend. Mike and I are coming back to my place to drop bags off and chill for a little bit at the apartment. I walked into my apartment with Mike this time, and Andrew was on my couch with a girl. I was completely in shock he got in again. The girl even had the audacity to say, "Who are you and why are you in Andrew's apartment?" I lost my mind on both of them and asked him how in the fuck he got in again. He had no made-up story this time. He just flat out didn't know what to say except, "I didn't know when you'd be back, so I've been staying here with this bitch." Mike was mad as fuck about the situation, as I told him all about it weeks ago. I demanded to know how he got into my apartment again. He said he made multiple copies of the key fob after he took it. My heart completely sank, and I threatened to call the cops if they did not get out of my apartment, and gave me every fob he copied. I was pissed and felt so invaded of my space. About a month goes by, and I was still thinking about it every once in a while. He was blocked on every social media I could find him on. I thought he was gone until I randomly saw him places, more and more frequently, like it wasn't a one-time thing. I saw him at least 7 times, and I was in public every single time. The last time, however, I was walking the seawall alone, and it was getting kinda late and dark out. It was about 9 p.m. in the beginning of June, and I stopped to tie my shoe, and when I stood up, he was right there. I fucking panicked because I genuinely felt threatened by him at this point. He kept asking why I ghosted him and didn't accept him coming around anymore, and how I could be so mean to someone who he was so into. He kept trying to grab my arm to talk to me and started yelling. I was in tears because his next moves I had no idea about. Someone thankfully heard and intervened. I told them I was not okay, and they called the cops. He obviously ran, and the police asked me to identify him. I gave them his name, and they couldn't find anyone with that name. So now it felt like me wondering if that was even his name. I remembered I had a picture of his license plate in my phone. He had a nice car and wanted me to take a picture of it with my phone as the sun was setting behind him. Douchey, I know. So I gave them that information, and they told me the plates weren't even registered. So now I'm mind blown by the whole thing and very confused, even a little worried. They couldn't do a whole lot with what I provided, but they said they would update me if they find anything, and to contact them if he gets into my apartment again or if I saw him out. I never did, thankfully, but to this day I'm always looking over my shoulder for that stalker. I have since then moved and haven't seen him again, so to the guy who broke into my apartment on more than one occasion, let's not meet again.